You're listening to Bears Beyond the Gate, a Bristol Bears podcast made by fans for fans. We're 3 season card holders at Ashton Gate who love the club, the game and all things Bears. Well, we can barely contain ourselves this week as the boys went to the Rec on Saturday as underdogs, but left with a wholehearted Blackbird ringing in their ears. It was a game of passion, purpose and no little skill from both sides. But for the 145th time in history of this fixture, the Bears were triumphant. We break down the events at the Rec and then look forward to the next game at Chiefs with the help of SW Rugby writer John Evely. It was also the start of the PWL, with the Bears women winning at Loughborough, and finally, we refer ourselves to the IGCC, the Independent Goats Complaints Commission, for some false advertising. I'm Pete, and I'm joined by Lee and Miles for a cheeky beer and a bit of rugby banter. Well, boys, we're not in the Bristol Beer Factory tonight on account of City playing Cardiff this afternoon. And the beer factory was staying open a little bit later.
I thought you were going to say it was trashed by Cardiff fans.
Well, it might be because we haven't been down there. But they did offer us the office, which is kind of above the bar. But I think, given the problems we had with the rain pounding on the roof last week, I think the kind of hum of football fans underneath may not have
punching noises.
May not have
declined.
Exactly. So we thought we may as well come back to the old pod studio, which is my kind of, I don't know what we call this room. It used to be a dining room. It's just a room.
It used to be a room where you just dried your pants, wasn't it?
I mean, I've taken the washing
drying room.
I know, I've taken the washing off the radiators.
Full of champagne now and kitchen bits.
But because we're not at the Bristol Beer Factory, so we haven't got Bristol beer to drink, we thought it would be a good time to have a bottle of gem, wouldn't it, Lee?
Well, we should say, first of all, folks, Eat Sam lads. And merhaba to both of you.
Right.
Which obviously our intelligent listeners would know if they know a bit of Turkish. There was a backstory to that, though, Pete, I didn't tell you about, but actually I had a couple of bottles of Efes for you boys. Traditional Turkish malt lager beer. And they got smashed in a suitcase. So I thought, what could I do as the next best thing? And I thought, seeing as we've just beaten them up the A4, give them a good hiding, I'd get some Bath Ales for us to celebrate.
Brilliant.
So you're welcome, fellas.
And you got their classic. You got the gem for us, which is the kind of fortitude equivalent.
Fortitude of Bath.
So
not as good as fortitude.
No. But no, that's good. So talking of which, I take it you had a good week, because obviously we missed you last week. Lee, me and Miles had to talk to each other. Although we did get Lewis from the beer factory on as well, just to help us out.
Well, it was lovely because I enjoyed listening to you boys when I was in Turkey. Actually, I should mention a little shout out to Ian and Georgie, who we met on holiday. Lovely couple from your neck of the woods in Southampton near AFC Totton.
Yep.
And they have now converted into Bears supporters because of, obviously I mentioned the podcast.
Excellent.
So, and we've got to give a good shout out to Trojans, or the T's as Ian calls them. So big shout out to them. And hopefully we'll have a new listener tomorrow morning from Hampshire.
Well, look at that, because we get the breakdown of where people come from who listen to the pod. So we'll be looking out for. Well, it might even go as close as Tom. Actually, it's pretty specific.
Really.
So we'll be looking out for that this week.
We'll see.
See if they actually meant it.
Yes.
Yeah. And we had 2 listeners from Turkey last week. We suspected our mate Leah was one of them, but someone else, I don't know.
Yeah, but that was Ian.
There
because he, as soon as I mentioned the pod, he stuck it on straight away.
There you go. That's
fair play to him. But yeah, we had a lovely holiday. It was a bit of a culture shock going from 34 degrees in the sun to 12 when we got back to Bristol. But it was a lovely week off, and the only trouble is working today, and it feels like the holiday didn't exist now.
No. I know.
But yeah, you did a grand job, boys, in my absence.
I thought we did all right, didn't we? We managed to natter for long enough, really.
Probably too long, to be honest.
Too long.
But anyway, we've had thoughts about that this week. But Miles, what about yourself? Are you okay? Me and you watched the game together, didn't we? Your gaff.
That's right. We enjoyed watching the game on the old ITV, which is the first sort of televised terrestrial game yesterday. And we had O'Driscoll and Flats, didn't we, commentating? So we were quite impressed with that. And then today I've been to the circus, boys.
Circus?
Circus up on the Downs to see some acrobatics and all that sort. Took the family along, pissed down at the end, but yeah, it's entertaining.
I'm surprised you said you hadn't gone to the circus in Bath, because there's quite a few clowns there on Saturday.
We'll get onto that later.
Anyway, that's a bit harsh. That was a bit below the belt.
No, the big top up on the downs. Enjoyable afternoon with the family.
Very nice. But I would say, Mars, you take this time. Weren't you inside the tent or you're outside the tent?
We were. I gave 2 umbrellas to the Duchess to bring along, looking at the forecast. Got out, said, "Where are the umbrellas?" Oh, left them both at home. Unbelievable.
And what about you, Pete? What did you get up to?
Well, after watching the game, after that, I had a couple of beers at Miles's, and then annoyingly, I had to go pick up the girls from like 2 separate daughters at 2 separate parties in different parts of Bristol. So I had to do a bit of taxi driving, and then today I've just been sort of faffing around, thinking about this. Watched a bit of the Exeter Chiefs Saracens game this afternoon, which we'll come on to. So yeah, pretty reasonably nice weekend. But anyway, boys, we better crack on.
Yeah.
We've got things to talk about. But before we talk about it, it's something that I've started doing, which I quite like actually, is to play Pat's post-match soundbite after the game, and we did it last week, and it's quite a good way to sort of start the conversation. So what I thought we'd do is we'll play Pat's one, and I've also had a soundbite from a listener again. So Nick Howell, who's a very big friend of the pod, sent one last week, and he sent another one this week. And I may not play him all the time, but actually this week his one sort of dovetails quite nicely with Pat's. So what I thought we'd do, boys, is I'll play them both through now. We'll have a little listen, and then we'll have a chat about it afterwards.
Pat, you spoke to us in match about what occasions like this mean to past players, to the community, to you yourself. We've just seen the huddle and the joy on faces there. It's full time, the game's done. Your thoughts?
Yeah, really pleased for the boys, really pleased for all the Bristolians and our community. It's, this is the 10th win in 13 years. They made it very clear to me when I got here. And, and the ones that we lost have been really close. So we hurt about last year losing this one. And... But, Joe Joyce sent a message to Genji and to myself, and, I think we just knew this isn't about individual, this is about us and the community. So put the bodies on the line, and the boys did that.
Well, that's one start. I've got another one for you. You've not lost on the road now since last November. Why are Bears travelling so well?
I think, I don't know, I think we like where people don't give us a chance, I think most people are thinking we're going to finish down the bottom of the table, and it's still a long way to go, I know. But we have an inner confidence of what we can do, and, we were gutted last week, particularly in our defence. We let some soft tries in and around the whole place, but today the boys showed what they were made of, and we just said, look, it's got to be a non-negotiable for us, show up with our physicality and intent into our game. We got a lot of belief in our game, and but that's both sides of the ball.
On the whistle reaction, lads, what a game. Like many of your listeners, I've supported this club for 50 years, and I can remember the barren period where we barely got a sniff against this lot. So a win today against the odds, away from home, absolutely fantastic. Well done, lads. To a man, they were brilliant. A great, well-deserved man of the match, but so many great individual appearances across the pitch. You got to say fair play. And we fully deserve that. So really, really pleased. A win away at the enemy. Love it. What a way to cap a Saturday night. Might go out and have a few beers now, got to be honest. But well done, lads.
Okay, so boys, well there you go. That was Pat and Miles. That was Pat and Nick with their thoughts. I think we'll come to you first, Lee. I mean, based on kind of the theme of what they were saying, you as a born and bred Withywooder, there's no barber jacket hanging on the back of your door. There's no silver spoon coming out of your mouth, is there? So, what did you think about the words that were said then?
Well, first of all, we should say, actually born Southmead.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, bred Hartcliffe Withywooder. But all the same, it's all the same.
All the same.
I have to go along with those opinions of Nick, especially. I mean, it means everything to me. It really does. As much as I try and kind of be sensible and be kind of nice about it at the end of the game and stuff like that, it does mean everything. It means the world, because I think, like you say, we've had years of Bath being the best team, not only in the local area, but the best team in the top league. And, playing them now, even though yesterday was really tense and tight, I mean, it's like heart attack material, even when we were up. But it means the world to us, Bristol fans. And I'm not saying just Bears fans, I mean Bristol fans. And like Nick said, 50 years of supporting them and, all those years of getting battered. And now it feels like every time we play them, we've got a good chance. And I know Crooty won some money because he put his money where his mouth was, didn't he? And yeah, I think that I don't know, I don't want to get complacent that every time we play them, we're going to win because that'll be defeating the object. But I certainly would take every victory that we get from them and celebrate it as we always do.
Well, that's
with a cheeky bear.
Exactly, and that's very well put. It's interesting because on Points West on the night before the game, our mate, friend of the pod, Damien Derrick, did a quick report, and he put a graphic up which I tweeted out to everyone. And the clubs have played each other 255 times. 256 now, I should say. There's been 19 draws, and before yesterday, 92 wins to Bath and 144 to Bristol on the history. And of course now that's 145, that's quite an interesting stat, isn't it?
But I should quantify that. I'm talking about like the era from the 80s into the 90s.
Exactly, the 1880s.
Yes. and that predominantly is, unfortunately for me, when I was growing up and following Bears.
Well, you look quite good for someone born in the 1880s, mate.
I mean, the big bulk of those Bath wins came in those years. Yeah. And that was just unfortunate that I was supporting, Bristol. But I mean, overall, obviously, that still looks fantastic, doesn't it?
And I think it's a good point you make. I mean, I came to Bristol 99 to train as a teacher, so obviously I can't. I'm not a born and bred Bristolian, but I've been here 24 years. My kids were born here. My daughters have grown up here. They've grown up in BS3. And I mean, in the 2000s, we had, I remember going watching them with the ups of Pichot and Contamponi, and then obviously the downs of the Championship. And we didn't really play Bath in those days. No. But I also think it's important to recognise that there's also another era. There's the Bears era, and actually since the Bears era, and there'll be a lot of fans that have come into the rugby club. There are fans, from different eras and different places, and I think the interesting thing with the Bears era, it's been a very positive situation between Bristol and Bath. I mean, our recent form at the Rec has been pretty good, and even the ones we've lost have been only by a few points. Of course, we've hammered them at Ashton Gate a few times. I think I just think it's really important. I mean, two teams very close together. Whether you're a 50-year but Bristol fan, or whether you're a recent Bears fan, or whether you're a 150-year-old geezer who's remembers the good old days, it's a big game, isn't it?
It doesn't matter in terms of what geographic area you come from. If you're a Bears supporter or you're a Bristol fan, it makes no difference. You said like you're almost kind of excusing. You're trying to feel. It sounds to me like you're feeling guilty because you've only been here 24 years, but you're a Bears fan. Exactly. You pay your money down there. You support the club equally as well as me and Miles do. That we celebrate our wins together equally, don't we?
And just as we're all celebrating the win for the city that we live in, and it's all part of our identity. I mean, there are Bath fans that are feeling bad, and we know a lot of Bath fans who we've got a lot of time for, and we know that they'll be hurting.
A little bit of time for them.
And that's kind of the beauty of sport, isn't it? That's the beauty of support.
Yeah. And we must say, I mean, there is a couple of nice Bath supporters. I mean, we know Tommy Dabbs and Lloyd Rimmer, and we're going to, Bath Bites. There's some nice people there, and we do feel for them now because we've been there. Well, we've been there. We know how much they hurt. But equally, there's a lot of tossers, and I don't feel sorry for any of the bolly bashers at all. So,
I mean, what's great was that I think clearly we went in as the underdogs with the bookies, didn't we?
Must have.
They're runners up in the Premiership final last year. quality signing. They're doing a lot of good things with Van Graan as coach, aren't they?
Yeah.
And doff our hats to him, don't you? What he's done and turned that club around.
Yeah.
In
a short space of time as well.
Very short space of time, and injury aside, we go to their backyard, and we just put one over on them. I mean, I cannot be happier for the boys on the weekend. It was tense match, wasn't it? As we'll come to talk about. What a brilliant win in their backyard. Loved it.
I think it was all the more better than even though it was a great game against Gloucester in terms of a spectacle. There was clear disappointment from the management, from the players, that they didn't perform at Ashton Gate the way that they wanted, that they were leaky in defence, the physicality, wasn't quite there, or the precision, I should say, wasn't quite there. And I think they obviously went there to make a statement, and it really was a statement. If you put it in the context of the Gloucester game as well, it was a phenomenal result. Yeah. I mean, some people might say, well, we let in 4 tries, but I actually think that was almost irrelevant. I think Bath are always going to score some tries.
Yeah,
they're that sort of team. But what we did on Saturday in terms of just they always put the body on the line. We know that. I mean, but the way that they did it with precision and the way they worked together as a team and the way that they genuinely, to coin a cliche, did play for each other was a real behold. It was really beholden to us to see. So, in that sense, it was fantastic too.
Yeah, and the one thing I did love is exactly what you've just said then, right, Pete, is even the commentators at one point then when Bath scored the 2 quick tries, and they were almost saying, like, how are Bristol going to react? Or are we going to kind of go into our shell and defend? But the thing that I loved about it, it's like being in a boxing ring. You get punched in the nose, you either cower down and you lose the fight, or you come back and you hit the other guy on the chin. And that's exactly what we did. We came back, and do you know what? I love it. And so many times last season we were disappointed because we were kicking the ball up and putting it too much ball in the air, box kicks too long. We played the Bears' way. And even if we would have lost that game, I would have rather lost playing the Bears' way and going for the throat than losing by cowering back and kind of defending and trying to hold a lead, which we would never have done anyway.
I mean, when I was saying to Miles when we were watching it, when we were in that second half where we were camped on our line, we were giving away penalties, I kind of knew that there was a card coming. I almost said the trouble is we need something to happen here because we need to get up their end. Yeah. So we need them almost to score. Ironically, I think those are one of those situations, we've been there before, where it might have been worth them letting them score to keep the 15 and then get back. Because I really felt the way we played in that first half, I thought if we just get out of our 22, I think we're going to score again. I felt really positive about it. And then lo and behold, we did concede 2 tries when Santi Grondona was off. But when we then got back in and he came back on again, we made that break. Yeah. McGinty made that amazing break. We're piling through. Sam Underhill dives in from the side to kill the ball, gets carded. Yeah. We go to the corner and we score our 5th try. And I thought, I knew that was going to happen. It was almost like, it was just the way we had played. It just felt so much more solid than some of the play that we did against Gloucester. And I think in the end, we managed the game out really quite well.
I mean, don't forget we had a little bit of luck on our side. Do you remember they had a disallowed try? Because they had a quick try at 55 minutes and 58 minutes, but then there was a sort of knock-on, wasn't there, before they got a try. So, it could have been a different story, couldn't it, then, if that had got over. But you're right. I think once we scored again, I think Pete and I thought, well, this game's won. If we can just see it out, which we did brilliantly, then, that was good.
I mean, lads, we got ahead of ourselves a little bit there. I mean, we started with all the kind of philosophical stuff. And I think it's worthy of a game that I think we should go through, particularly that first half.
We should dissect it a bit more.
We need to dissect. We need to get it on the slab. We need to get the scalpels out, and we need to dissect it a little bit. So I'll start off. I mean, let's start off with the first half.
Didn't take long, did it?
I mean, it took us, I don't know what it was,
1 minute 32 seconds, wasn't it?
I mean, it was a Maylands try again. I mean, Maylands has scored a lot of tries already.
There was one bit of brilliance in that.
Yeah, I mean, if Lee, you go for it. I mean, tell us, you slice that open and tell us what you think.
For me, it was that delayed pass from Adj. That slight second delay, and break from Gabs, because without that delayed pass, Gabs doesn't get through that space.
It was perfect timing. He came from the other wing and he just hit the ball absolutely in the gap at speed.
And that is the type of try that Pat would absolutely love, because that's come straight off the training ground.
Yeah. Oh, it's 100%.
Hasn't it?
Although we were initially potentially cursing Gabs for cutting inside, weren't we? But, he's got the offload. He's doing that a lot recently, isn't he?
But I'd also say when he did that offload, Jimmy Williams already in his mind knew what he was going to do before he got the ball, because he knew if he gets that from Gabs, if he gets it out straight away, and that as well was a fantastic pass to just open it up for Maylands. And a few people said there was a hint of forward. I looked at it, I didn't think it was anywhere near. And that as well was also a very fine bit of skill. Just getting it, like Gabs, it was ironic. It was the delayed pass. Then we had someone who kept on the ball a bit too much when it's like, and then we had someone who then got the ball quick hands. It was like all three skills, all in the space of like 10 yards. I mean, it was a fantastic try. And it kind of set the thing. But of course, they then came back quite quickly, and we had a bit of controversy. Ted Hill in the corner. I thought, fair enough. It's always going to happen.
I can see why Bath supporters were upset by it.
But in the letter of the law, you look at it, I think it was a knock-on the line. I mean, it's happened to us before. Do you remember when it happened to them at Ashton Gate, and that guy, one of their guys, dropped it over the line, didn't he? Was it Homer or someone, Tom Homer or someone?
Will
Homer dropped it over the line. These things happen, and I just think if you're a good enough team, you don't let that affect you. You just go back and do it again. And of course, Bath, to be fair, they then scored pretty quickly afterwards. So it wasn't as if it was a huge sort of negative to them. And it was the young lad, Miles, that ran through the...
Harris, 15,
Sam Harris. I mean,
what ran through us like butter, didn't he?
I think he's a bit older than 15, but... He was playing at full-back, I know, Miles.
So, Miles, talk us through that then.
Well, the problem is that... Perhaps Lee will come on to talk about this. Then there was an appalling missed tackle by, Ibitoye, which basically just let him carve through. And the problem is, I think the forwards were relying on Gabs to get the tackle in. Looked pretty straightforward. Were delayed anyway, and then no one got him. I mean, not taking nothing away from Harris at 15. He stormed to the try, but pretty inexcusable.
And it was a little bit of a legacy of the new DuPont's law, wasn't it? Where... it was actually a really good clearance kick from Harry Randall.
Of course.
And the forwards aren't allowed to. They've got to stay where they are. If they've got to retreat, and Harry didn't chase it because it was a clearance kick. It wasn't a Gary Owen. Yeah. So the forwards were I reckon they were kind of caught a little bit. They knew that they had to stay where they were. And again, I think there's a bit of, they saw Gabs was there. They're probably thinking, Gabs, he'll do it. And then the guy just there, the attacker was missed, it happens. And then, of course, he was straight through and he was fast.
Yeah.
Fair play to him.
Well, I don't want to get on Gabs' case too much because he had a brilliant game again. And he's been fantastic all season. But you are right, because Gabs has got to make that tackle. Because otherwise, all the rest of the lads coming up, they're offside anyway, aren't they? Yeah. So that tackle, that initial tackle needs to be met. And do you know what? The only thing I was going to say, a lot of people have been saying Ibitoye should be playing for England. That missed tackle is, for me personally, the reason he's not in the England squad at the moment. And I think we all talk about fine margins, but it's those fine margins that either get you in a squad or keep you out of a squad.
Yeah,
I think he's that close.
Yeah, right. I think it's a fair comment. You think people like Tom Roebuck, who's in it for sale, he comes from a kind of defensive system that, is a different sort of setup, is a Borthwick sort of setup. And, another coach would say, well, that's the risk we'll take. And that, there's things he does that no one else can do in the Premiership. And I think that is pretty much the case. There are things that Ibitoye does that no one else does. And it's just, then it's down to your coach how much you're going to risk it. But anyway, let's move on. So, I mean, that was a little bit disappointing. And I did think, this has happened before. We'll go ahead. It's like Gloucester all over again. We score early. They come back in. And I think I could see this happening again. But of course, we didn't let that happen because pretty much, down to a couple of things. Gabriel Ogbury, one of them, but obviously Santi Grondona as well, getting a brace. And of course, we ended up scoring a bonus point before half time. I think I can't remember the order of the tries, but I think the Grondona was the next first one. That was a fantastic move as well.
It was a brilliant inside pass from Gench.
Again, it was Genji. It was superb.
Class.
And that is, again, the Bears way. It's not about having prop forwards that are good at what they do in terms of the scrum. It's about prop forwards who are willing to look for opportunities.
Yes.
And I mean, that is kind of what Pat goes on about, isn't it? Is people being able to play rugby. It was beautiful.
I had in my notes, big heavyweights hitting the line with great runners.
It did.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was. I mean, the teamwork involved in a lot of our tries was outstanding.
But the irony of that try was that Grondona got through, and then he had the fullback to beat, and he had McGinty on the inside, and I thought, well, obviously, I mean, in real time, I was thinking, we'll just pop it to McGinty. He doesn't. He does a little body swerve, and I'm thinking, and then of course, how much we bigged up there Sam Harris for the try scored. I mean, he was kind of shown up a little bit that he missed the tackle, and of course he's a young lad and he's got a lot to learn. And actually, Grondona just completely schooled him there. This is a guy
who's a beast, man.
And this is a guy who's just been playing against the Springboks a week before, so I think he saw a 15-year-old in front of him and thought, I'm not. And actually, I got to say, I reckon there was a little bit of that. It's a little bit. Hey,
why should I give it to Adge?
He stepped off a flight from Argentina, come down to some posh city and thought, I'm not having that.
Well, he said, I'm not having this boy run through us. And now I've got a chance to put. So fair play to Santi for that. I'm sure it wasn't the case, but I do think. Actually, having said that, I reckon he just thought, I've got this.
And that's what I like. It was the belief in his own ability to get over the try line, wasn't it?
And then of course he scored again, which is a bit of another great try when he I mean, that's what we've been asking for, that go forward where he hit it was off a ruck and he just hit the space.
The next one.
The next one was Van Rensburg. But, I was just saying with Grondona, that is, I think his second try was almost as good because that was a try that comes from somebody who's played at the highest level. He got half a gap and he just reached and got it down, knowing he was going to get marmalised by Abano from the side. Finished, but before that we had the third try.
Quick tap from Ogre, didn't we?
Well, Miles, I mean, I was with you. I mean, you were spluttering into your beer when you saw that.
Absolutely. I mean, it was. I sort of like. Is that Randall who's just saying? But no, it's Ogre. Quick tap, pelting towards the line, saw a little bit of space to Bernard, threw it to his right, and then over the sticks he goes. Great combination.
I think I tweeted
brilliant awareness.
Great insight and awareness from Gabriel Ogre.
I mean, it was. I think I did the post article today, and one of the things I said about Ogre is that at times it felt like we had a second scrum half on the pitch because it was like Randall, and then it was Ogre doing the same thing.
And the thing is that performance has been building in Ogre. We've said all season he's been fantastic, hasn't he? And do you know what? When you think we really were crying into our beers when Harry Thacker was injured, and I mean, this guy stepped up, and he's on the cusp of the England squad. Yeah. He's right up there, and he's really earned it.
No, it's very good. So anyway, we go in we then we're 4 tries up. I mean, that is
we've been there before.
We've been there before,
and none of us were confident, were we?
And even at the end of the first half, when they're down our corner, I'm thinking, they'll probably score again. But James Dunn, big friend of the pod, came in with a jackal. Not many jackals in the game from us. We're not really a jackling team, but when it mattered,
not with Dan Thomas missing there.
But when it mattered, it mattered anyway. We go in at half time,
27
up. And of course, we know what's coming. We know. I mean, Bath are going to get a rocket.
Of course they are.
They know. They probably know themselves that they just weren't at the races.
But another thing is, I loved about it. Didn't happen initially.
No.
We took it to them again.
And that is what we want to see.
Yeah.
Took it to them, got a penalty.
29-7.
So we're 29-7, and then of course what we suspected would happen did happen, and we had that kind of 10. I mean, it was quite a lot of time camped in our corner.
On our line,
I think I mentioned it earlier. We knew probably a yellow was coming at some point. It did duly come. We then conceded a couple of tries within that time. But as I said earlier, I just had that belief that when we got back to 15, I just felt that we had that belief in our ability that if we could just get up their end, something would happen. And lo and behold, Adge makes a fantastic break. Underhill comes in at the side. We go to the corner, And then something that we haven't, we've talked about recently, we haven't seen as much of. But Miles, you were wetting yourself over it. You tell me what.
So you should have been.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Did we have? When did we last see a maul try?
Ages
we used
ago.
to be infamous, didn't we?
Yeah.
It
almost feels like 2 seasons, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like we haven't been doing maul tries. We've been mauling up the pitch and mucking it up. But this was a thing of beauty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A maul try. Right in the corner, up in the rack, was absolutely fantastic. Was it Bertoye? Did he?
It was Bertoye.
Sorry, Ogre
Sorry,
scored on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, a thing of beauty to see down at the rack. A classic, pushing maul try. Absolutely loved it.
You love a bit of grunt.
Love a bit of grunt.
I mean, the beauty of that is it kind of. It almost went through like so many phases to get to that finishing point, and it was classic. It was a classic finish.
Yeah.
I want to see some more of that this season.
Oh.
And I suppose it was a little bit disappointing that they did manage to get the bonus point. But I've got to say, someone said that they were going backwards and forwards for a long time in that last 10 minutes, and they were boys that have been. They were dead on their feet, and as the commentary said, is that when you play a possession game, it's a tiring game.
Yeah.
We have made a decision not to give forwards a rest by box kicking or kicking long. We've made that decision, and therefore we have to trust it. And obviously the bench play a part, but there were boys that were Batley, James Dunn, who'd been. Had been on
phenomenal, really phenomenal.
Fitz Harding, Luatua, Santi Grondona. They had been
the lungs on the boys.
I know, and I think that is something we have to doff our caps to as well.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's people might say, oh well, we gave away another 4 tries, but I just think I actually now starting to think if we're going to play like this, we're going to have to accept that however good our defence was, and it was really good. It's going to be a bit harem scarum like that.
And this isn't great for the pod, but show of hands who would be more than happy to carry on that way.
No, I think we all do. And I think it does depend on us being precise. It does depend on us making sure that when we do have chances, we put them away. And I think that's fundamentally the difference between this game and Gloucester. Was what we did on another day, we would have strolled that game against Gloucester because we had a lot. The red zone efficiency on Saturday was so much better. Yeah. In fact, when you looked at the stats, we were behind in territory possession quite a lot actually. We were low, but the one thing we were ahead of was points in the red zone, and that kind of says it all. And that was that's we know. I think the thing is going to take us forward into the season is that they know they can do it. They can't talk. They have talked about it, but they know they can do it, and it's just going to be. I can't see us changing our strategy too much.
No.
Although it'd be interesting when we play Sarries what we do. But,
that's the only thing. We are going to have that plan B. Yeah. We need that adaptation to certain games, and I think we all know that because we won't win anything playing that type of rugby every single week. So we do need the slight adjustments.
Yeah, and it may be certain times of the second half we are going to have to kick it, but we probably got away with it on Saturday because it was quite near the end and it wasn't really going to impact. If that had been on 55, 60 minutes, then there might have been a plan B. But I think, we've mentioned a few people, but should we whip through a few more performances? I think it's worthy of performances. Miles, do you want to kick off? You've got the floor. You can choose whoever.
Are we mentioning the obvious first?
Well, you go for that then.
Well, O'Grady was man of the match, wasn't he?
I think anybody who watched it. If you didn't watch it, I would recommend you go and watch the highlights. Then you'll know why he was man of the match. I mean, it wasn't so. I mean, he did his basics perfectly well. His scrummaging and his line out was brilliant, but it was just his ball carrying. It was just his general awareness. It was his energy. Ironically, there was a bit of a parallel with him and Sinks when Sinks didn't get picked for the Lions, had an absolute storm at the wreck, and O'Grady must have been pretty disappointed not to have made that 36 training squad for England and had something to prove, and fair play to him. So we've done O'Grady.
Before Miles is going through his list, I thought a very close second was obviously Santi Grondona.
100%.
I mean, like say to get him back from injury, and I think we knew we had a player there when we signed him, and I think he's just and do you know what? I think he's the type of player we need in that team that emphasises everything that Pat wants to do this season in terms of how he wants to play rugby.
And then if you think we can get Big Bill Matter back in November, so he's not be too far away, that's a
compliment.
That's a big back row.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you've got the likes of the mobility of Fitz and the bravery of Fitz. You've got the grunt of Matter and Grondona, and you've got just the general sort of quality of Luatua. Oh, we just got to keep those boys fit.
We've got to keep them fit. I just want to mention, if Miles will let me, just one more. This is an unsung, under the radar one. But I just thought Joe Jenkins, when he came on for, James Williams, we'll get onto later, again, was class when he was on the pitch. But I just thought Joe Jenkins was brilliant from the restarts. It was he was like semi, but he didn't drop the ball.
Exactly.
And I just thought that little jink and beat the first man. And this is a kid that we know has got so much potential.
And I mean, give it a few more months and he'll have a beard like Sammy, because he's already started growing.
He looks like, isn't he?
Yeah.
A bit patchy in parts.
Yeah.
But under the radar, but I thought real class.
And I mean, he's a good story, actually, because he wasn't initially in the 23 in the Newcastle game. He played for Dings on the Saturday, had an absolute stormer, a couple of line breaks, gets in the 23 for Gloucester, gets on the pitch at Gloucester, makes a mark, pretty much has a whole game against Bath. I mean, I think we haven't gotten to that, but I would say he's a starter at Chiefs. We obviously going to have him there, but he's a starter, and I'm not worried about it.
No, I think you're right.
Totally agree.
So, Mars, you've had loads of time to think about it.
Well, I think I'm going to tick a couple of doff my caps, a couple of unsung heroes, and that's the second row engine room of Dunn and Batley this weekend.
Yeah,
absolutely phenomenal. Let's just say, a friend of the pod, Dunn, the passion when we scored that try for a young head on the shoulders is phenomenal. Him and Batley, I mean, we were looking at that back row of Bath and thinking, flick, we're in a bit of trouble. If we don't just click as a pack, they could just push us out the park. They did nothing of the sort. Yeah, there were a few slips in the and penalties in the front row, weren't there? Inevitably on that terrible pitch. But the power in the engine room of Dunn and Batley were phenomenal. And again, unsung heroes. So
great
brilliant
shout
for those two the weekend.
Yeah, I think that's good. And on the talking to James Dunn, we do have a little bit of a connection with him. He has followed us on Instagram, and I sent him a message earlier to say, what a great shift you boys put in, and it was seeing you boys, or Genji in the middle, trying to teach Santi the words
Some of the words of the Blackbird
as it was being sung was
just them quicker than Semi.
Semi never got anywhere. And I just said, to James Dunn, obviously he's come up through the system. I've said, I know how much that performance meant to Bristol fans. But we thought we'd tell you anyway. Chiefs, train well this week. Chiefs look there for the taking. Get another 5 points. And he got back to me and he said, "Thank you, guys. Always feels extra special to beat them down the road. Always a tough one at Sandy Park. Will be nice to string some performances together." So that's hot off the press. Our mate James Dunn, who was an absolute, as you say, Miles, he's been brilliant for about a season and a bit. Hasn't he?
For me, again, a player knocking on potential international honours in the next few years.
I think so. So you two have had a go. I mean, if I was going to add my two penneth, I just think, rather than, I'd say this idea that there was a lot of matchups.
Yeah.
And we had international halfbacks against each other. Yeah. Randall and McGinty against Spencer and Russell. Yeah. We had our midfield, initially Williams and Van Rensburg against their midfield.
Yeah.
We've got Max Malins as fullback against the 15-year-old. And I just think the thing was, we pretty much won every single individual battle, either by a lot or by a little bit. And of course, all that together cumulatively. Van Rensburg, again, just an phenomenal
we can't talk anymore about it, can we?
We can't big him up anymore.
Can't say anymore.
And actually, an interesting thing came off of it, because it hasn't sort of been bugging me a little bit, is that he's not actually a massive guy.
He's not.
And they said that on comms. It's just he has this ability to just kind of get over that gain line. But
do you know what it reminds me of? And I'm going to have to use a football kind of.
Go on then.
It reminds me of Glenn Hoddle in a lot of ways. Yeah. Just he's like a visionary. When he's on the pitch, he sees stuff that happens. It's almost like he's got an aura which is in the stand and can see what's going on the pitch.
It's not complicated to him,
No,
is it?
it's not complicated. He's so, like, if he stays at Bristol, he's going to be a legend.
Yeah.
He will be a legend. He's phenomenal as a player.
No, I agree. And give it a year or two when he qualifies for England, he could be one of our Bristol players playing for
imagine
England.
that.
But we'll see. So I just think, all of them had great games. Lahif, I thought, had a great
brilliant.
game.
Yeah.
I thought, obviously, Genji or Gray with the back row. Randall was just live wire. He made things.
was
Ibatoye. The irony of ironies is probably the two players that were probably a little bit disappointed with was Rich Lane and Rory McConaughey, because both of them just they probably cancelled each other out and didn't really get a lot to do. Rich Lane, he didn't really get in the game, and we know his class, and we know. And I felt a bit sorry for them because they probably were desperate to get into. McConaughey had a couple of chances and didn't get anywhere. Lane had a couple. You're like,
But that in itself is a true professional, isn't it? Because, someone who doesn't get the ball that often or didn't hardly get it at all, but they're still professional enough and concentrating enough that when they do get it, they still make an impression. And Lane, the couple of times he did get it, he made some good breaks down the wing, didn't he?
Yeah. No, and I've got to say, you mentioned it, but AJ McGinty, this guy is over 30. Everyone talks about Finn Russell, and Finn Russell did a couple of amazing things on Saturday. He is a class player. But AJ McGinty made about 2 or 3 breaks, and he did it against Gloucester. This guy, you don't have to be a sprinter to make a break. You've just got to know where the space is. And again, in defence as well, he is so solid in defence. Yeah. And I think that is a massive thing for us, that teams know they can't attack us down the 10 channel.
Yeah,
they know that it's a closed door. And I just think, we're going to get a season out of him. If we could get 2 seasons out of him, brilliant. But we really, really, really need to start thinking about, we need a class backup to him sooner rather than later. But that's a discussion, because he's so good that we got to have that level of somebody else.
That's a discussion we'll have with Pat in a couple of weeks' time.
Some of those kicks that were right in the corner. I don't care what anyone says.
And actually, it was mentioned on comms and that has been a big difference, that we're getting that depth as well. So fair play.
He nearly hit all his kicks from the tee this week, didn't he? Even out.
And we should say Finn Russell shanked one terribly at the end, didn't he?
No. Yeah. It's anyway, we need to move on, boys.
Yes, let's do it.
This week we're not going to read out hundreds of acrostics. It's become a bit of a thing now. We've got people sending acrostics without me telling them. It's almost like I'm going to have to get an anthology together by the end of this season that's going to be on GCSE syllabus.
We have said that maybe we'll have a competition, an acrostic
we might have
competition.
An acrosticker off.
Yes.
But having said that, I still think I'm going to read 3 out really quickly, because these are 3 that were specifically unique to this week. And then I'm just going to doff my cap to the people that sent them before. So here we go, boys. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Let's try it. So, first one. This was from Brisley. Now, Brisley, the reason I'm reading this one out is because he sent this acrostic almost immediately on the final whistle. So he'd obviously been thinking about it during the game. So I think on that basis only, he gets to get his but also it's a very, very niche reference to something. So you really need to concentrate on this.
Okay.
So are you ready? Here we go. This is Brisley.
Right.
Bristol win. Away at Bath. Top of the league. Hard fought and bodies shattered. Got that so far?
Yeah, got it so far.
We're in.
Get ready. This is the niche. Pushing until the end.
Yeah.
Laying the foundations. Under the cosh. Gritty and tough, standing tall and celebrating victory.
Bath plugs.
Bath plugs.
It is Bath plugs.
He's having a pop at the other podcast.
Oh, I like it.
Love it.
That's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
That really is good.
Okay, so brilliant, Brisley. That got you the first readout. That was top of the class.
Top of the
That's
tree.
nice.
Second one was from a new. I don't think he's ever sent us anything before. He's called Rob, and he'll know who he is because I'm reading it out. And Rob sent us an acrostic, but he also sent an accompanying photograph with the acrostic. So it was like a double one. So here we go. And you'll know what the photo is when you get the acrostic. You ready?
All right, yeah.
Here we go. It's quite a short one. Scintillating in attack, against the odds, never say die, tenacious in defence, I'd rather have a shower.
Got it.
Got it?
Santi.
Santi. And the picture is him having a selfie with Santi after the game.
is
I mean,
it?
can you imagine when he
Look
was
at
trying to
that.
explain what he was going to do? Can you imagine? Santi, we're going to do an acrostic. A what? Yeah, an acrostic poem. Yeah.
I thought we were going early for Christmas for a minute.
And then finally, I'm going to read one more out. And it was from John Sexton, he's a long-time fan. But the reason I'm reading this out is that he responded to another acrostic with this acrostic. So this was like a response acrostic. Yeah.
That's a challenge.
It was Marcus Watts' acrostic that he responded to.
Oh, so he's trying to take on...
Yeah, but then he got a clap from Marcus Watts after this one. So that's why that's another reason I read it out, because of the respect from the original acrosticer.
Yes.
So here we go. This is a bit of a tricky one, so concentrate.
Right, okay.
It's 2 words.
Yeah.
Great chance of making the pod. Analyst extraordinaire, I should say. Witty, eloquent, and beautifully descriptive, just like our bears. GAWD. Gord. There he. Know what thoughts? Never show your hand first, or someone slides in with a cheeky reply. Thanks to standing on the shoulders of giants.
Gord knows. Because he's kind of referring back to Marcus or something like that. It was very clever. You almost got to read that one. Anyway. It would have been easier for me and Miles if you'd have read Marcus's.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, we'll have to look on Twitter.
You lost us a bit.
But then again, I was going to... I should also... I was going to give mentions to everyone else. So the following people also sent acrostics in, and they were all brilliant, and I just haven't got time to read them out. But again, Marcus Watts, John Phipps was a first-time acrosticer. Roddy Jenkins, first-time acrosticer. Hammy Hambley, multiple acrosticer. Andrew Cleaver, a.k.a. Vadar. Because I sent something out at the
Andrew,
end.
come on.
I sent something out at the end, and it wasn't supposed to be an acrostic, and he was like, had a go at me. He said it should have been.
Yeah.
Dan Masters, he sent one out. But I also need to mention via email, we got an email from Rachel Pearce after the Gloucester game, and it was a nice email, but it was very short. And all it said was, frustrating in nearly 80 minutes and realising game is not savable. And I thought, well, that's nice. And I kind of just thought, well, that's nice of her to send that. And then about a week later, she emailed me and said, it was an acrostic. And if I say it again, you ready?
Yeah.
It's basically the first letter of every word in the sentence. So here we go. Frustrating in nearly 80 minutes and realising game is not savable. 2 words. Frustrating in nearly 80 fine
Margins.
minutes and realising game is not savable.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
That is unbelievable. That's high level.
Oh, that's Hambley Brothers level.
But that's
Marcus Watts
even
level.
above their level, because this is just a whole sentence that makes sense, and the acrostic links to the theme of the sentence.
She's made you look a fool. Man.
Made us all look a fool.
Not all of us. I just wasn't expecting it. But anyway,
we are fools. He's the teacher.
So anyway, Rachel, that's absolutely genius,
class.
and thanks for your correspondence. We do enjoy emails, and actually on that note, we did have a couple of direct messages. I'd just quickly like to say Richard Spurlock, who has emailed us in the past and had some quite a very interesting thoughts about Pat as a coach.
Yeah.
But Richard has replied to a tweet that we sent out. I think it was the one of Damien Derrick, that graphic. And it was his first ever tweet, he said. So his first ever tweet is a response to a Bears Beyond the Gate post. So brilliant, Richard.
Brilliant to have you on
we look
board.
forward to your acrostics in future weeks.
Yes.
Also, a DM from Richard Morse, who has been in touch before, gave us a nice summary of his game, and it was really nice to read. We must remember Instagram. And actually, I got a direct message today from our friend Southwest Dog Skills, who we have ascertained is now a real human, not a dog. And he sent me a message saying, why haven't I sent out the short, sharp summaries? Yeah. That reminds me, what was that dog in the 80s? The bloke, the
What was that with the hand up?
the one with the hand up the arm. I can't remember. Anyway, he is, and of course, I had to go back to him and say, look, Southwest,
I know it was Bob Carroll G's with Spit the Dog.
Spit the Dog.
Yeah. Sorry, for the listeners, we should say Pete was doing a visual of a hand going up someone's arse.
And the guy who, I don't even know what Southwest Dog Skills' real name is, and he's really very complimentary about the pod. And I feel quite guilty that I don't know his name. But he did say, why haven't you not sent the thing out? I said, mate, people are just sending them in now.
You don't need to.
And I haven't got enough time to read them.
And we do appreciate.
And we massively appreciate it. So, and it's kind of takes me that kind of, I am a teacher, and there is this creed that I follow, is that if you give a man a fish, he can feed his family for the day. But if you teach a man how to fish, he could feed his family for a lifetime. I feel like that's where we've got to with the acrostics and the short, sharp summaries. I'm now empowered.
We're in the room with a philosopher today, mate, aren't we?
Teaching as
teacher
empowerment.
And philosopher.
It must be the gem that he's drinking.
It may be.
Anyway, we've really got to move on. A couple of others very quickly. Neville Holmes got in touch with us on Messenger, gave us a nice rundown of his hospitality at the Rec. And went, basically Sarah went there with trepidation. The pre-match meal discussion was all about how Bath were going to smash us.
Yeah,
so it must have been an absolute pleasure to have been there. So great. Nev is the Rifles Cup guy as well.
Yeah,
so really nice to hear from Nev again. And finally, Sarah Beaumont, who we've met before, who comes up from Cornwall. She's the lady who does the amazing caricatures.
Absolutely.
And I saw her caricature for the game on Facebook, but she sent it direct to us as well. So
That's lovely.
so that's really nice. And we've still got she sent us the calendar last year as well.
Yeah.
So
we would love to work with Sarah, wouldn't we, at some point? Because when I move into my new place, I want a caricature of the three of us up on my wall.
And that could be part of our burgeoning merchandise empire, which we haven't really got.
Well, we haven't really got anywhere with it.
But that could be part of it. Caricature photos. Anyway, so that was it. So I think we've done a lot above. We've done longer than I thought there, boys. But I think it was worth the effort.
Yeah.
I think fans are expecting a big debrief from that.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of really happy Bears fans listening to this weekend, this week, and we love every single one of you because we all enjoy it together, don't we? We're in it together when we lose, and we're in it together when we win, and that was a classic.
Well, before we move on to next week's game, we need to very quickly mention the fact that the Bears women were playing today as well.
Of course,
yes. Well, playing yesterday, I should say, and it was their first
Prem game.
PWL, and it was at Franklin's Gardens actually against Lightning, Loughborough Lightning, and they put in a great performance. I mean, without their big players who are all playing for England at the moment, it was a 49-19 win, and it had 2 hat-tricks in it. And Renika Bonner, who we saw last year, who thought she was real class. She scored a hat-trick within 8 minutes.
Oh,
8 minutes.
8 minutes, yeah.
It took that long?
Yeah. She needs to get a move on. But then also Millie David, who I think is Matt Crute has been telling us is a sort of up-and-coming new...
Yeah.
She also got another hat-trick, and she sounds like she is a try machine. She got a hat-trick in the second half. And I think the big feedback that we got from that game was that that there were some senior girls playing like Amber Reed and the likes. I think the pack was pretty strong, and we've got these young girls coming through, and the senior girls sort of guided the youngsters really good, and great start. I mean, we know that obviously the bar was set high for the women last year. They got to the final, and they were they put up a really, really good fight against Gloucester Hartbury in that final, and I think
we'll be there again this year
once we get the internationals back. And it is a bit disappointing that they're going to be away, but then again, so are Gloucester Hartburys and so are Saracens. I think Dave Ward is definitely making a massive impact at the women, and we know that in a couple of weeks it's a double header at Ashton Gate, women. So up the women.
Yes, come on, great start.
Okay, so next week we are playing Chiefs. We're going down to Sandy Park. It's it's a place that we often have close games down there. We've had some success and we've had some frustrations there as well.
Orange as well, Miles, haven't we?
Some frustration.
I mean, I was trying to sort out a PPP, a Pete's Premiership preview, and couldn't really find anyone from Chiefs. But then it struck me that our friend John Evely, who's obviously the writes for the Bristol lineups, but also he is the South West Rugby writer.
He's a Devonian.
Yeah, and I thought if anyone's going to know anything about how the Chiefs have started the season and what their kind of philosophy is this season, it'll be John. So John very kindly gave up 10 minutes or so of his Thursday night. Spoke to him this week, and just to really get the lowdown on the Chiefs. So let's play that now. Okay, so John, it's great to have you finally on Bears Beyond the Gate. We feel that we kind of know you quite well, but have never actually spoken to you. And of course, all our listeners will know you from your excellent match reports and also your updates from press conferences. And I know a lot of our listeners kind of wait with bated breath on a Wednesday stroke Thursday to find out, what's been going on with the Bears. But of course, you are also the Southwest Rugby writer for not just the Post, but the rest of the local papers. And it was really about Exeter Chiefs that I really wanted to pick your brains in advance of us playing the Chiefs fairly soon. And really, the first question I had for you is what's your sort of take on Exeter's squad this season, how they've played so far in pre-season, and obviously the first couple of games of the season, and what you sort of think about them as a team.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's been way too long. We should have done it sooner. But I'm glad to finally be here. But Exeter this year are really disappointing at the moment. Last year, they were actually the delight of my season because they far exceeded their expectations. I thought they were going to be scrapping around the bottom of the table, looking at that huge exodus of players that they had, the likes of Sam Simmons and his brother, everyone, just a huge swathe of stars moving on. And yet they didn't. They rocked up on the first day of the season, beat Saracens 65-10, just unbelievable day. I couldn't believe what I was watching, and just continued to have those results throughout the season. 2 weeks later, beat Sale 43-0, and they just, they won away in Toulon, and they just kept a roll going. They just kept exceeding expectations. And I think that's actually set quite a high bar for them this year. And so far, they've fallen well under it. Obviously, we've had the first couple of rounds, three rounds by the time this goes out, but they really should have beaten Leicester Tigers. Leicester Tigers this year aren't that special, but in the first round, they went down with a try in the last minute, Tommy Raffel getting in, and it looked like they were in full control of that game. They were by far the better side, but they managed to lose their heads in the last few minutes and let a home result go. And then actually they played pretty well up at Northampton in round 2. They were out of the game for 65 minutes, but the bench really rallied and they came strong at the end, which was quite interesting to see. But again, we're out of it for far too long. So this season, they just haven't managed to find the levels which they did last year. I actually anticipated they were going to have these type of problems before the Premiership kicked off, because I think you can't underestimate the influence of Henry Slade, who's currently out having had an operation on his shoulder. David Jenkins, of course, young Welsh international captain as of last year, out as well, having had surgery on his shoulder and his knee. And you just look through the side and you're like, where's the leadership? Where's the experience? And actually listening to Rob Baxter, he's saying what's been going wrong is exactly that. People are losing their heads. They're going off script, and key moments of the game are going the wrong way. So Jacques Vermeulen's another one. He might be back in time to face Bristol, but he's been missing at the start of the season, having taken a knock in their pre-season win against Ulster. But he had actually captained the side most of the way through pre-season, and they were kind of billing him up to have a much bigger leadership role, and he's been absent. So just those kind of really senior players have just been absent, and they've been missed.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting because obviously last season, the Bears, we had a bit of we lost both games, a close game in many ways at Sandy Park, and then a pretty horrendous game at Ashton Gate. I mean, the one thing that I obviously picked out, and a lot of people did last year, was the rise of one or two fantastically good young individual players at Exeter, and I just wonder, what you're saying is, it seems to me like they were close in these games, and are we actually, potentially going to be the recipients of a day when they might put it all together, and obviously this undoubted talent that they do have in their side, may come through, and if that's the case, I mean, what do you think Bristol have got to do down at Sandy Park to make sure that it's not another loss?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a risk, but Bristol should go into the games as favourites, I think. You're absolutely right. I mean, the likes of Manny, Fayu and Boso, it's just been absolutely sensational. I mean, there's nothing new about that. For me, if I was picking a Lions team right now, I'd start him on the wing. I mean, he's just been incredible, and he's carried that form on for Exeter this season as well. He's now on 10 tries in his last 10 games. Not sure what will happen at Saracens, but he's just in phenomenal form. And Northampton Saints in round 2 just did this incredible job of trying to basically man mark him. Every time he got the ball, he got hit by about 3 defenders. Well, that tactic worked for 65 minutes. He ended up with 2 tries, and that just tells you everything you need to know about him and kind of the ceiling on his talent. So keeping him quiet is going to be one of the hardest jobs going. Bristol have got some issues on the wing. Siva Nualago out now for a couple of months with a broken cheekbone. So, that's some key men there missing. I think the thing that Bristol need to do heading down to Sandy Park is they need to probably strike early. Like, if you can get a couple of scores up, shake them, then you've got a good chance of kind of building on it, because I think they're short of confidence. It's something that Rob Baxter, again, has kind of admitted that they are. So if you can just start putting them in a hole, I think you could get on top of them and get a good result. So that's probably what Bristol need to do.
I noticed, actually, hot off the press today, that you reported that they've just signed an Argentinian international. I mean, I don't know too much about him, and reading your report, it looks like he's kind of not got a massive amount of club pedigree anywhere in particular, but just to sort of come on the international scene. I mean, do you know much about him? Is he likely to start, do you think, against Bristol?
It'd be interesting to see whether he kind of adapts in time. It sounds like he's only just arrived at the conclusion of the Rugby Championship. He's had a sensational year, really. So he made his debut against France in those kind of our end of season tours, and has basically played pretty much ever since in the second row, including in their win against New Zealand when he scored a try. So he's definitely got something about him, and he's the type of muscle which they could do with, because, again, they've got a few issues in their second row at the moment. There's Pearson's injured, who kind of runs their line out. They've been playing kind of players out of position there. So there's some issues there. I think Rob Baxter was saying today they're looking to get him in pretty quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him involved. And Exeter, in a lot of ways, are still, particularly in the pack, they're that big meaty side which we're familiar with. That said, I think it's actually their backs which are really kind of struggling at the moment. The scrum is great under one that got away from Bristol in Ross McMillan, who of course was playing here 5-6 years ago, but has now built a reputation as one of the best scrum coaches in the game. Exeter picked him up from Irish when they went under, and the general consensus is it's one of the best signings the club's made in recent times, because he's really transformed their scrum. And it sounds like when he arrived now 18 months ago, he just completely stripped everything back to the bare bones and started again. But everyone that's worked with him has just got glowing reports, and it's given Exeter a license to change the way they play, because they feel that they can take more risks, because if they then knock the ball on and there is a scrum, they feel they've got a better than average chance of winning a penalty, even if it's against the head, to get the ball back. So it's really kind of the foundations of their change in style, because they have changed in style. They're looking to play more. They're looking to play off first phase strike move, like Bristol did 4 years ago, really. When Bristol were at their pomp in 2021, they were the best team in the league at scoring off first phase. And that's actually something Exeter are really kind of trying to replicate at the moment. So, there's some solid bits there. But at the moment, it's Exeter's back line which isn't clicking. And they don't have an elite scrum half. They don't have an elite fly half, in my opinion. Harvey Skinner is a decent Premiership professional, but he's a long way from an AJ McGinty or a Finn Russell or one of the elite players in the league. I mean, you look around, most sides have got a top international player there. Exeter haven't had it at 9 or 10 for quite a long time, and I think they're being caught out and found out at the moment because they just look really uninventive in attack. It seems to be give the ball to Manny and see what he can do.
Okay, so that was John. I mean, it's always great talking to journalists because they're very forensic, very knowledgeable, and they speak very highly. I mean, I don't know about you boys, but the takeout I took from that is that, ironically, it seems like Chiefs have gone back a little bit from last season. You know, that he's saying that they, with Slade out and missing their old guard, that at the moment they're lacking a little bit of leadership on the pitch. And
one thing I would say is obviously 9 and 10. We've just said how important it is for us to have a strong 9 and 10 there, and I think that could be really important for the next game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I watched them this afternoon against Saracens. They got absolutely turned over. They looked poor, I've got to say, and I like Exeter Chiefs. I like everything that they've done, but they did look substandard today, and Saracens didn't really have to do a lot to get a bonus point win, and it is sad. I think they Jack Maunder, I think it is, and the fly half. I mean, they're good, decent young lads, but they, as is proven, you need to have absolute quality or something special at 9 and 10 to really compete.
Well, it sounds like you're quite confident, Pete.
I am confident, only because based on the way the way Bristol played at Bath. And I think that we'll have the physicality on that pack. I think we will have them. They've still got some young lads there. It's a bit like going up against Pepper and Miles Reed, quality players, but they're just, now I look at Rondona and I look at Luatua, Dunn and Batley. We've got a settled
pack. We've got
pack.
our own voice.
We can rotate in Kloska with Mahif. We can Woolmore and Genge, Ogre and Capon, or Ogre and Thacker if he's back. I just think we've got confidence in our ability. And I put it this way, I don't think Chiefs will be looking forward to facing us.
No, I think you're right, mate.
And I think the back line, we've spoken enough about it. I mean, obviously Williams is probably going to be out. It sounds like it looked pretty dodgy.
Shoulder looked a bit
nasty, the way he went off, it was that when your shoulders got hanging down. I mean, I'd say that was weeks. I mean, worryingly. But then Joe Jenkins stepped up, and every team is going to have this challenge. So
you're right. I think we've got to train with that in mind, that Jenkins and Bates are our centres and backup next weekend.
And possibly if Jenkins starts, then someone's got to come in on the bench to cover him. And it could be Diego Bailey. I mean, he played for Dings yesterday. I mean, these lads have all been getting game time in National 1. So they are going to be match fit. So we're going to have to accept
these youngsters are going to have to step up. I mean, we mentioned Joe Jenkins earlier, and I think Bates has played quite a lot. Premiership rugby. It's time for these boys to step up when needed.
So I don't think there's a lot more we can say, really. I think that we just need to play a really fast and physical game like we did in the first half at the Rec, and I don't think they'll be able to stay with us.
I think years gone by, we might have been pretty scared about going down to Sandy Park, mightn't we? We got turned over last year with Camray with absolutely no points at all. But I think we should have a bit more confidence this year that we can go down and...
have to be.
Have to be. After that playing this weekend, go and get the win.
And also, when you look at the fact that in this block of 6, we've got Chiefs next week, then we have Saracens and Saints. 2 home games, mind. But 2 big games.
Tough teams,
Like, if we go into Saracens on top of another win... and then, we get something out of that and we go Saints on a Friday night and we've got, we can give Saints the chat. I'm sure the boys will be reminding them about the double last year. Friday night. I don't know. It's, I think Chiefs will set us up nicely. And then if we go into the autumn internationals, there or thereabouts at the top, that's good. But, long way to go.
I'd say, though, the great thing about that is, we all know my mate Paddy, my bestie.
Yep.
He's a massive Chiefs fan. Ex-season ticket holder until they got too expensive. And but the beauty of that is young boy Patrick has started supporting the Bears. So Patrick now is coming of age, and now he knows his true rugby allegiance. And,
nice. Does he now put his bedroom out in the shed?
He's got a Bears top and everything. So I'm sorry, Pad, but you've lost your boy, son.
Is it Columpton?
Columpton, Columpton Rugby.
Fair play, young Patrick Jr. walking around Columpton with his hoops on. That's hardcore.
That is hardcore.
He's going to get short shrift from a couple of local.
We should come together and send young Patrick a hoops top for his birthday, shouldn't we?
I think we should, actually. That's a great idea.
Paddy's wall.
Yeah.
Anyway, well,
so that's next Saturday, 3 p.m. down at Sandy Park, isn't it? That away game.
Well, lads, we've got one other thing. Last week we gorged ourselves on goats. Me and Miles did about 4 goats, and
inevitable first home game of the season,
and all rightly so. And we won't go over them again. But unfortunately, we have now got to refer ourselves as a goat. It's really an apology.
No, wait a minute. It's not your apology. It's not. Don't include Miles.
Include me in this.
I am self-referring myself to the goat and myself, and something I said last week has caused one particular fan a lot of consternation. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out what happened. So basically, during the game yesterday when we were watching it, I was looking at our socials because I was on social duty. Miles was making notes,
following notes,
and I was monitoring the socials and tweeting stuff out. But I thought I'll have a quick look at Messenger, and lo and behold, there was a message in the middle of the game. It was like half time. I was thinking, who's that from? Anyway, it's from a listener called Jamie PW, and I have seen him on Facebook as well. So I think he's one of the Bristol supporters. Anyway. He said to me, was made to look utterly foolish in front of Big Dave Atwood's bar.
Is this an acrostic now?
No, this is not. This is furious. This is not an acrostic. This is a serious...
This is a referral to the Ombudsman.
This is a legal letter. Yeah. I was made to look utterly foolish in front of Big Dave Atwood's bar, thanks to you lot. So he's blaming you, Miles, as well.
Okay.
I walked up to 3 ladies, brackets, who were very pleasing on the eye, and said, quote, I love dry ropes. They looked at me in bewilderment, and I have come away not only looking like a complete baboon, but with no discounted drink. And for those listeners that didn't listen...
Or a buffoon.
A baboon. He said a baboon. I mean, that's worse than a buffoon. A baboon. But for those listeners who didn't listen last week, basically I announced that Dave Atwood had said to me that if anybody goes up to his apero bar and says... I listened to Bears Beyond the Gate and I love dry ropes, you get 10% discount. And I thought he meant at the Rec as well for the game. But obviously it wasn't that. It was only for Ashton Gate. And apparently Jamie did go back afterwards and Dave was there and he said, I went back there, spoke to Big Dave. He said only Ashton Gate, quote, obviously showed his true allegiance today. So, I mean, we've had a lot of love-in with Dave Atwood. He's been very fun with the pod, but I don't know. I mean, it feels like the romance has gone a bit frosty. I mean, we will support Dave down at Ashton Gate, but poor old Jamie PW, I feel like we actually owe Jamie a drink. So what I reckon we should do is, next Sunday at 7 o'clock, Jamie, why don't you come down to the beer factory? We'll get you a drink.
and Pete will buy it.
I will.
Free drink.
And if failing that, I genuinely do feel quite guilty about that I've done something wrong. So Jamie, at some point...
And we will confirm with listeners our exact contract liability.
I've already instructed my lawyers to look through the contract that me and Dave Atwood drew up about this discount.
I think you know too many beers by then.
This is the whole reason we don't do ads and sell ourselves out, because we'd be murdered. We'd be tied up in legal jargon for years and years to come.
Well, anyway, all I can say to Jamie is I do apologise.
We refer ourselves to the.
You were put in a very difficult position, but we will get clarification in time for the Saracens home game, the next home game. And I think on that note, boys, we better stop.
We better.
But it's great to have you back. It's great to have you back at the pod studio again. Good to see you back, Lee.
Good to see you.
And have a good week, and we'll catch up next week.
Sunday.
And
come on, Bears.